Hello.
Hello.
Cedric, how are you today?
All right, Jane. How are you?
I am fantastic. I want to introduce who we are, I guess, and what we're doing.
Okay.
So I'm Jane, and I am interviewing Cedric Umoja.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Spirit fingers.
I do
Yeah.
jazz hands and spirit fingers too.
Yeah.
I do it frequently. It's interesting,
That's
I'm
where it's
sure.
at. That's where it's
Right?
at.
Well, which is perfect because I feel like it's when we get excited. And what we're doing is the Human Amplification Project, and we're interviewing on behalf of Listening to Smile and bringing the amplified human, the who we are, the excitement of what we are and what we're creating
Yeah.
out there for everyone to see.
That's great.
Yeah. So
I'm
thank
excited
you.
about it. Thank you guys.
So I want to ask you a couple questions about your creative process because you are an amazing artist.
Thank you.
I've kind of stalked you a little bit in your creations, and I am in complete adoration of them. They spark a lot of inspiration and thought for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell me about your creative process. Like, how do you even receive inspiration in the first place? Like, how does that seed kind of come about?
Well, I sit at the table and then I keep sketching until something comes to me. Doesn't sound very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not very exciting.
No.
No, honestly, what happens is I come to myself and I sit with myself and I allow myself to be open to the possibility of what flows through me. So I work more like a medium than anything else. I'm just channeling stuff. That's what it is. So I channel. I'm a medium.
Right?
Yeah.
I think we as
Yeah.
humans are.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we are all from the same everything. We're all like, I am you and you're me, and we're reflections of each other, which is really fun to kind of sit in this now and kind of feel that knowing,
Yeah.
and knowing that whatever we are doing or saying or creating, that when we're doing that with that clear head, calm space, and open heart, that whatever's coming through is like of our highest self.
Yeah.
So do you meditate to do that, or do you just kind of shake it into place?
Just allow myself to be.
Do you have a ritual with that?
It depends. It depends on what it is I'm trying to open myself up to. So if I'm making something simple, if I'm looking to make something simple, no. But if I'm making some huge works, not just in size, but like body-wise, number, then I might be open in a whole nother way. Clear the air, burn some Palo Santo, something like that, and get it started that way. Start to think and just let my mind be open to the possibility of what's going to come to it. It's the way it works.
I think that like when you do that, like you can't be stressed, right?
No, you can't be.
Like if you're sitting there and you're like, I've got to clear my mind because I've got to paint a thing.
No,
it doesn't really work so well.
No, it doesn't work that way. You just kind of got to let it be. And you got to have faith. You got to have a lot of faith. And you have to have some patience.
Patience with like yourself.
Patience with yourself, patience with the source, patience with the universe, patience with everything. You have to just have the patience.
And knowing that like whatever's going to come out is going to come out at the perfect time.
Yeah, and
perfect place.
And that's what the faith of it comes into play. You have to just believe that you're here to do this and that it will come to you when it's time.
So it's almost like I see your seeds as being like where it's like you want to cultivate something, and you know that you want it to be something beautiful and digestible, like in a garden, right? Like zucchini. They're delicious, great for us, and the flowers are beautiful. So it's like allowing yourself to stop and say like, what seeds is it? Like what seeds do I want? And then kind of allowing that to even that stillness. So then what comes out?
Yeah. Well, I mean that's I think that that's more, when that stuff does come out as preliminary. So it's like you're trying to figure out what this means, and sometimes you don't know what it means, but you don't try to make it mean anything. You just try to receive it, and it will eventually. If it doesn't make sense to you now, it will make sense to you later. Is the way it goes, and I'll say like a lot of stuff that I grab and a lot of stuff that I might make art for a particular show, exhibition, look at it and say, oh man, the energy of this does not fit this. What does this mean? I don't know. I set it to the side, and then maybe 2 years later, I was just ahead of myself in that sense. Like I received something that was like probably the beginning of something else for, 2 years in the future. Then I realized this is what it meant. I was actually, doing work in the future and the present. So, which is actually known as a genre I practice called Afrofuturism. So it kind of falls in that realm too. Like being able to receive and then knowing where it goes. Or feeling where it goes. Because it's really based off of feeling anyway. It's like, when you're tapping in, I feel that way. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to get really excited because when you were talking about how it's a process and it's like, that it's growing into something.
Yeah.
Don't know what, and it could just be that unfinished tidbit, or it could be this huge piece exhibit, and you don't know.
Well, you don't know.
And I think that there's something super valuable to the whole like living as a human in that concept and that belief and that faith, because it's like whenever we have anything happen, if we're like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this right this now? And, oh, this is useless and I'm hurt and I don't know what to do. And then you just basically you sit in that, which would be like looking at a painting that you just started and just looking at it like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with you. And then you don't create anymore.
Yeah.
And if we do that as a human to ourselves, like we don't grow and we don't heal. Like I define healing as facilitating a positive change in self and or others. So
Makes
I think,
sense.
I think we're all healers and we all have the capability of healing. And I think that you saying that the way you create, like allowing something to happen and being patient with it, and being called to go back to it. It's like life. It's how we heal and grow.
It's true.
Do
Definitely
you,
true.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you use your creative expression to heal?
That's all that is used for.
How do you define healing? Or do you define healing in any other way? Or how does it heal is really the crux of the question, if I think about it.
Well, I don't really define healing in a particular way. I just look at it as like everything. It has many possibilities. So that's the best way to describe it. Best way to describe it, okay. Which is going to kind of describe it, but not describe it.
Even better.
But it's going to describe it. So some friends of mine, we were all like sitting down, like it was years ago, and talking about what freedom meant. And just saying, like, what does freedom mean to you? And this person said that, and that person said this. And then somebody in the circle said, well, freedom might mean a new paint job on a car, new speakers, new mag tires, the brand new steering wheel, the new headlights on the car. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Talking about freedom, man. We're not talking about a car. And so I thought about it after he said it, though. I was like, well, that might actually be freedom to somebody. So it's all about how we see it and how we define that. So when it comes to healing, everybody heals differently. So I don't really put a stamp on what healing is for someone else, or even for myself. It is an act of love, and that's it. Very simple, an act of love, and how that love is used. It depends on the person that's receiving it. You know what I'm saying? Because in some cases, the healing may actually be an opportunity for people to learn. So education process, a teachable moment. In some other cases, it might be someone seeing something, it jogged a memory that caused them to think about something that was really deeply embedded in them. It made them want to reach out to that part of themselves and then contact whomever it was that they were having problems with because they saw that. Or even like contact their deepest self because they've been dealing with something for a long time, some trauma. So you really don't know. But I know like what I'm doing is just an act of love. So hopefully, that's received. So.
That was answered so beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
when you were talking about that, it's from that love.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're all made of love. Like at the core of who we are love.
Do you really think that? I gotta ask, do you really think that?
I really do. I really do. Yeah, I feel like whether we express it or not is just a direct reflection of our knowing and like attaching and being of that. I think like at the core,
Okay.
it's whether we shine all that out or not is up to the free will of the beautiful humans that we are.
So I have to ask then,
Yeah.
this is sort of deviating in a sense. There is no supposed evil in the world? I'm asking.
I think that there's contrast.
Contrast.
And that is the chaos that creates the life that we have. Without chaos, without contrast, it becomes stagnant, it becomes absolute zero, it becomes nothing. So it's finding the beauty in that allows us to be more of the love that we are and acknowledge it and be like, oh, that's the contrast, that's what I don't like. Okay, good. I'm going to be the me in it as opposed to
I like that perspective.
So that's how I see that.
Yeah, I like that perspective.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
So being in that space of love, and you were saying that when you create, you're open. You're open up to your highest self, to allow the isness that you is to come out. And I feel like because that's who we are at the core, what compels you to share that space? Because we've been taught that when we love, be careful if you fall in love, you're going to break your heart. You're going to get hurt. And so a lot of us have built these walls around our heart in relation to so many relationships, be it with people, objects, food, art, creativity, jobs, whatever.
Yeah.
So how do you find the space of being vulnerable, first of all, to share it? Because you share your work big time, big scale. So how do you find that space to be able to share that? Do you feel like it's you can't not? Or are you just like, well, I have to? Or how do you do that?
First of all, you have to. Well, I have to anyways. I feel like I know actually that's what I'm here to do. But I'll say that it depends. I feel like I used to, like for instance, you say vulnerability. So when I was much younger, of course, and you were all influenced by this society in ways that tries to shape and mold us into tools for it. Like you end up, you take and then process what was given to you, then you accept that as the gospel in that way, and you say, okay, by doing that makes you vulnerable. Don't put your, what's the saying, don't wear your heart on your sleeve,
Yeah.
makes you vulnerable. But does it really? It's the same thing as crying. Like crying in public amongst people you don't know, does that make you vulnerable? Or do strong people do that? So the question is then, the question is, are you strong? Strong people demonstrate acts of love in private and public. Just like strong people cry in private and public. That's not a weak act, I don't think. I think it's an act of maturity in someone's soul, knowing who they are and being very comfortable in that, and displaying that. So I think that, like for me, it's a calling, is what I'm supposed to do, and I stand on that. I stand on it very, very strongly, actually, and I do everything I can to be firm in that, and also giving that up to others. So having them know that it is not just a labor and an act of love, because what I have to do in order to make this stuff, because there are times when we're out here in my studio right now and it's not an insulated place. So when it was cold, really cold not too long ago, I was out here in the cold painting. And there were times when you just don't want to be out in weather where you can't feel your fingers. And I had to do that because it was something I needed to do. It wasn't just an obligation for an exhibition. It was, this is your purpose, this is what you have to do. You do, and there are times where you are somewhat concerned about whether what I've done will be received, or whether it be confused by people, whether they would just be like, the message somehow got misconstrued. They didn't really get that, and that for me is the part where if I feel any kind of like, whether I have an issue with it or I'm feeling somewhat maybe vulnerable, it's in that I convey that well enough, that I do that. I mean, because essentially it's a visual language that I'm expressing. So I'm hoping that in doing what I'm doing that people get that. Okay.
So I was wanting to chat with you a little bit about this vulnerability and strength, because especially with, I don't know, I feel like you're like a superhero a little bit, showing that there's strength and beauty and creativity, healing and vulnerability. And I see it like we've been taught, that vulnerability is weak, like you were saying. And some of us have been taught that strength is not soft at all, and there's no compassion in strength. So it's like this beautiful integration of the two, where I feel like it takes a lot of strength to be able to be like Superman, right? And be like, okay, this is who I am. This is my symbol. This is my heart. There's a lot of strength in that vulnerability. And then being able to create from that space and share it, I think that becomes a really powerful medicine.
Yeah, I think it does too. But actually there's no but to it, but there is sort of. What we see, what we perceive, or what we think to be vulnerable, is it really vulnerable? So when someone's strong, you use Superman for example. Superman is strong not because he's strong. He's strong because he can understand that he has the ability to be stronger than anybody here, and though he doesn't want to force that upon others. He's using that to protect or maybe guide or something else. So, like, to me, that's where it really comes into play. It's like, I see the idea of being strong, or this concept of what society says what strong is an idea of being something that's very weak. I've been a Kung Fu practitioner for a long time, and what we've learned that firm is the way to be in all things. Firm doesn't mean you're hard, doesn't mean you're soft. It means you're in between both. You're balanced in that way, so you can be either or when you need to be. Because if you're too hard, if you don't, most people don't know, if you're too hard or you're too rigid, you break.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the trees. The trees that don't bend in the wind, they snap. So they have to, so the trees that don't, they have a little give, they have a little softness to them. So you have to be able to practice yin and yang, and not just your actions, I would say, but probably your thoughts too. Yeah. Definitely.
I feel like you have a really impressive, inspiring grasp on the complexities of the beauty of the like integration of the full human. Like, I feel like you are this Superman of sorts who is boldly going into the future with an open heart to create it now with this stillness and compassion and grace and just stillness, to be able to let it sit and marinate and root or just sit, whatever it is, so that because you know that it's going to come back up. And in that space, like, what you create becomes so much more profound. Like, when I look at your works, I'm just in awe of them, because there's so much. There's a futuristic quality. There's a historical. I feel like the ancients are in there, and I feel like the galactics are in there. And it's all coming from this beautiful integrated space that nothing remotely ever has been seen like that through these lenses. And to me, that's a vulnerability for you to be able to open up that space and share that. And I want to thank you, first of all, for doing that.
Thank you.
And appreciate the healing that you must have been and are going and growing through, as we all are.
Oh, yeah.
Because what it feels like to me feels so good. Like, it makes me feel good, and it piques questions. And I know that in that space, I'm becoming more well, because I'm feeling lighthearted and inspired and joy. So thank you for creating from your healing spaces and your patience and your strength and vulnerability, for it allows me to receive that. So
I see that. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
So yeah, I'm going to wrap this up and say thank you for spending time with me on behalf of Listening to Smile and being such a beautiful representation of the Human Amplification Project.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Much love.
You too.